Finally, my goodness. People are popping in. Good. I had a little difficulty getting online today. I'm not sure what's going on. Who knows? Ah. Well, good morning. Good morning, one and all. Those are the people I am speaking to. Trying to let them know. Hello, fellow Mandela Affected people. I have several things I wanted to talk about today. Hey, hi, Gwyneth. You know, Chris Sinatra had put a thing up about those little purse things that the Assyrian and Mesopotamia and stuff like that, how they have these little purses they carry around. And that got me thinking about how there's so much going on anciently. Now you dealt with that manuscript, is that right, Voynich? Did that end up being um, uh, a medicinal kind of a thing on medicinal treatments? That was my understanding that was kind of the general theme of that manuscript that was so mysterious. But anyway, I was thinking of little purses that they carry, and we have no idea what is in those little purses, what they carried, whether it was some kind of device or tablet. Maybe it was their ID. I don't know. Although I think they kind of wore rings. Not medicinal at all. Lovely. Yeah, it just keeps getting better here, doesn't it? All the choice things that we have pop up here. Yeah, well, the darkness and the light, we're going to butt heads for a while until the light wins. I was thinking, when we were, the stuff in Egypt and stuff, whatever it is, your item is that you keep an eye on to know if there's any kind of changes, or if we've gone through a slip or a time slip, or changed, where we have moved from where we were. And that, if you use a photograph to keep track of your changes, that's going to change when the timeline changes. So photographs aren't a good idea. So they say you should draw a picture yourself or write it out longhand, orally, about what it is. I know that I did a drum. I painted a turtle on the drum. Then the turtle was drawn from memory. And lo and behold, if it doesn't look like the old turtle, things we draw or write from memory do not change, whereas anything that's of this world, of this particular timeline, will change. And so that was something I was thinking about, how do we, I see lots of Mandela effects being reported here and there, and they're all ones that I've already known about. I know people discover the stuff on their own, in their own time, their own, opportunities to do so, and their own ability to recognize the changes. And so, I'm thinking, well, if you can remember in your mind, but all the better if you can write it down, what you believe, some kind of thing that changes. Now, there was a thing about Procter and Gamble. It's Proctor when I was young, but now it's Procter with an E. And these things are all very interesting, but it's still, I wonder, I said, well, what does it all mean, and what can we do to navigate this rather precarious thing that we're experiencing? Keeping track of your personal Mandela effects, you may or may not want to do that. It depends on how much intestinal fortitude you have, because sometimes, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I like to pretend it's not happening. So I don't know what it is you watch for changes on that. And those purses at those, and they're seen all over the world. You've seen them, in all kinds of carvings. Even in Incan and Mayan stuff, they pop up there. And the megalithic structures are everywhere as well, and the star forts. And you think about, well, I'm thinking about Pangea, when the continents separated. Now, we're told the continents separated a long time ago. And I'm beginning to think that maybe it happened more recently than that. And you wonder, well, why don't we know if it happened more recent? Well, there's things that they call resets, where things are like reset and people's memories are, it sounds crazy, are like altered or wiped or something. And that some of us, it didn't quite take. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of theories out there, but the Pangea thing, supposedly happened way, way long ago. I can look up on my phone. Oh, I can just look up here. Okay, it's a supercontinent that existed during the late Paleozoic and early Mesozoic era. Oh my goodness, my internet is so slow today. Hey, GPK. Good to see you. Yeah, it's kind of overcast today here. But I was looking at Pangea, and it supposedly happened 335 million years ago. I guess in the history of the planet, it's not assembled from earlier continental units approximately 335 million years ago and began to break apart about 175 million years ago. It was centered on the equator and surrounded by superocean. Pangea is the most recent supercontinent to have existed and the first to be reconstructed by geologists. And it's kind of freaky. Okay, so 175 million years ago. Well, I don't know what to say about that. But I mean, this whole idea of Pangea, and I'm thinking, we don't, all these things that seem to have slipped by us historically, like the mud flood stuff and the star forts and the arches, the arches that are everywhere on the planet, all these things, and of course the Tartarian Empire, that there's lots and lots of residual historical stuff, but it's not talked about like it's a real, it's not talked about in history classes, even ancient history. I took an ancient civilization class. Didn't talk about it. And so you have this thing going on that's, I mean, I hesitate to go full conspiracy theory on anything without any real supportive evidence of any kind, but something seems a little fishy, just saying. We were talking about the biblical changes last week and about the the lion and the lamb thing. And it's King James had his little bunch of scribes, redo the Bible. Of course, it's going to be biased because if there's anything in there he didn't like, he'd have them take it out. Yeah, GPK. I mean, it's like I did a video of the interactive map showing the supposedly transformation of the Earth. While interesting, it just seems very, it just doesn't settle. The whole idea doesn't settle in any kind of comfortable way. It just brings up more questions. I always like to think that science is supposed to answer some of them, but sometimes it just makes more questions that well, what about this and what about that? But I was looking about the lion and the lamb thing. I do tarot, and whether you think that's some sort of horrible thing or not, it's basically a symbolic way to access your intuition, kind of thing. But symbolism, I part of the reason I'm fascinated by it is based on ancient symbolism, including Assyria, including Northern Africa and stuff like that. So, you know, the lion and the wolf are very different symbolically. Don't know if I have the lion symbolically is about power over your animal nature, power over your emotions, power of the mind over fear, that sort of thing. And the lion's very much takes care of his own, has a pride, has a family. They're very proactive animals. And then you have the lamb. Now, the lion's a very masculine symbol. Okay. The lamb is a more, softer, calmer kind of creature, and it's associated with the feminine. So we have the yin and yang going on here with the lion and the lamb, and it kind of mirrors a little bit of the Eastern philosophy of balance. And so I was thinking, what kind of okay, I'm going to look at this. It's the meaning of a wolf lying down with the lamb. Now, the wolf symbolism means loyalty, family, friendship, teamwork, protection, that kind of thing, guardianship. And I'm thinking, what's the lion mean in the if we Google it? Majesty, courage, strength, protection, family, wisdom. Very similar. Very similar. Meaning, except that the lion has more to do with the official things like governments and stuff like that. I guess you could say the lion would represent the authority, and the lamb would represent the weaker of society, perhaps. But I mean, that whole thing changing, because people in one timeline weren't very good at translating, I guess. But the whole thing with the pangea, it's like they can compare the mountain ranges on the eastern side of the Americas and the western side of Europe. So there's some kind of thing going on there. So I was thinking, I was talking to Peter. He was talking about magnetics. And there was a thing that I saw, I don't know, I haven't researched it, but about the bumblebee. That the bumblebee, by all intents and purposes, should not be able to fly. And that supposedly they have found some information, some data that seems to suggest that it uses some kind of magnetic kind of thing to levitate. And since everything's vibration, it's not really not surprising. But the lowly bumblebee has this ability, and then that always tops me back to the flying machines of India, that they must have had some anti-gravity thing that they could do. Only thing I can think of is when they did some kind of reset. That certain information was wiped, but things remain. Things remain, like the megalithic structures, like the mud flood, like the star force, all these things remain and endure over time and are a little difficult to erase. I don't know. It's this world seems to be such a mess at the moment. But it's like I'm thinking of, Odepi Tepi. I didn't. I was cat sitting and I didn't get my sleep. Um, Buried. The whole town was buried in the desert. I'm going, how does that work? How did the people bury this town? And yet it looked exactly at the same level as everything else. There wasn't a mound. I mean, there's just so many things that we're told, and it's just none of it makes any sense at all. A little frustrating. Yeah, the insect world seems to have a lot of weird stuff going on. I don't know. I got a little disillusioned about trying to look up things in the Bible anymore because it's like so bizarre, to say the least. Yeah, God is in our image in the Bible. He's not a nice guy at all. Jealous, capricious, temperamental, bipolar. Sounds like us, doesn't it? Not so much what I would think a deity should behave like. Oops, sorry. Well, there are people much better than I that keep track of these things. Yeah, the whole thing with Moses having horns. Someone in that the King James Bible really messed up with that translation because that I remember first time I saw the horns on Moses, I'm just going, WTF? What the heck is that? And it's not like they look like the horns of a sheep or something. They look like parasitic worms that wiggle around on. I mean, they're creepy looking, really creepy looking, and it's like, but I was thinking too, about the symbolism of the tarot and everything like that, and um, the lion, like I said, is an authority figure, and the lamb is the feminine, the receptive, the gentle, the idealized. I'm not saying individually, but idealized, and 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 so we have all this going on. That's anybody who's religious, who's been very very spiritual, and I'm sure there's been changes in the Quran. I'm sure there's been changes in uh, the original Torah. I'm sure it's not just the Bible. It's just so we don't have a lot of connection to people perhaps that know these things. Yeah, a wolf is a different thing entirely. A wolf is a more cooperative animal than a lion. They have similar family kind of connections, but a lion is so has so much presence, and but it's interesting to note that the female in both of those is more dominant. They're rather matriarchal, uh, but a lion's a leader and a lamb is a follower. And I can't see, that making any sense to have a wolf. Then we have that wolf in sheep's clothing thing, and it makes you wonder, well, is that why it ended up being wolf? Wearing horns yeah, I've heard about that. I think I have. Do I still have the little devil horns? I have a red-haired son. When he was 2 or 3 years old, His hair was quite red. It wasn't fiery red. And I dressed him up all in red little sweatpants, a red turtleneck sweater or turtleneck shirt, and it had a little tail and little horns and had a little pitchfork. Oh, he was so cute. He wouldn't be. He would not dress up for his life. I'll be honest with you. Instead of the sparrows, now it says ravens. Oh, Mark, tell me that's not so. Oh my goodness. Well, there's certainly different symbology between those two. Is that indicative of the changes in the core belief system of our world? In certain groups that we have this going on? Bizarre. So we have, I know that MA talked about the arches as being a doorway into another timeline, perhaps. And, those things are all over the world, whether they're adorned or not. They're everywhere. And the star forts. When the star forts popped up, I didn't know what to think. And there just isn't really good historical background on those, and why the people, some people say that's the Tartarians. Their reach was far and wide. Now I do have some things I've saved that were old photographs and written records about the Tartarians, and there was one woman who lived amongst them and wrote a book. And I mean, there just isn't enough time in a day to research everything, honestly. God's name was Jehovah, supposed to be Jesus in the Old Testament, right? And then it's hard to keep up with the changes. Interesting. Psalms some of those are beautiful. There's some beautiful prose in the Bible. Very passionate stuff in there too, which is like, yeah. Well, it was lonely out there on the desert, right? So I'm thinking now, if we have to draw or write down what we believe and stuff, or what we're watching for, I guess that's going to be our personal Mandela, thing to watch. I don't know. There's a possibility that with the mud flood, I'm thinking with the mud flood thing, that some people think that was an attempt to cover up. Although I don't know what that all means, because if you move from one timeline to another, wouldn't the world be a different place? Or is the world in some way morphing as you move along as well? Or is it we're going to a place got this history? Has a cushion to rest his head? Well, he should have a cushion, right? You're referring to when they laid him in the tomb? Another thing, oh geez. I go over to the Oh yeah, the rare white dolphin, Casper. On his couch, of course. I know there were changes to the Last Supper. You know, there was a copy of the Last Supper done by a female artist. Did you know that, in another church? The number of female artists now blows me away because they were completely suppressed in my original timeline. You didn't find women composers. You didn't find women artists. Yeah, women were totally relegated to barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen kind of thing. Now we have medieval times artists. You know, generally speaking, you know, the sculptors and the artists and stuff usually had to apprentice under a master. And so, you know, gravity's in gravity. Gravity's in the Bible now. Well, I know that you know, on the glasses that appeared on the Last Supper, that glass was not mass produced for a very long time. Hey, Lynn. Glass wasn't produced for a long time. You'd have natural glass, which was the lightning striking the sand, you know. That's kind of awesome. You have the volcanic glass like this. This is a kind of volcanic glass. So it's kind of interesting that there's glasses on there, you know. And there's always that theory that the person to his right is actually Mary Magdalene, because it doesn't look like a man. It doesn't have hands like a man. I don't know. Really, Mark? You know, whoever's in charge of the programming for this timeline's got to fix things. Well, I don't know. All my sons know how to do programming, okay? And you fix one spot, another spot will go haywire on you. So, I mean, it takes a lot of work and effort to fix code. You know, if what we're experiencing is got to do with code, then you know I can see how things are so messed up, because you know it's always hard to get good help. You know, they won't hire good people because it's too expensive. So who knows what they hired for this particular little adventure we're on? Somebody who wasn't very good at it. Oh no, what goes up must come down. Well, as far as this week, you know, I've been spending a lot of time going to doctors and having tests done, that sort of thing. And I'm okay. I don't think there's anything seriously wrong with me, but I finally have a doctor that decided to find out why, you know, I limp so badly now. Now, I never used to limp really bad. I have scoliosis and I have one hip higher. Never used to limp so badly. But after one of the shifts, it's just, I don't know what. So what, you know, has my health changed completely, or is it just simply a doctor's decided to take care of me? I had doctors didn't do anything. That's not true, Mark. I am a biology major in college. It's not the same DNA. The DNA that runs your cells, not your genetic DNA. It's a different thing. Your genetic DNA is not altered by the vaccine. It is your metabolic DNA that's altered by your vaccine. Anyway, you're entitled to your opinion, but that's what I know. I've had all the vaccines, and so far I haven't grown an extra ear or anything. But these are health issues that I've had for a while because I have severe sleep apnea, and so a little bit of issues from that are not surprising at all. But I don't foresee any problems. I'm going to be fine. I am, older, and so some of these things are just part of the body, getting older. Yeah, I try to go natural whenever I can. I do take a Lipitor, though, generic Lipitor. And I'm using CBD to help me sleep. So, I'm not going to take ivermectin. I'm a country girl. I know what they use that stuff for. And there's no way that it would help with a virus unless the virus load was in your intestines, which I don't believe it is. But needless to say, we live in a strange world. We do. And that's not true either, Mark. Let's get off the vaccine stuff. That's something that you need to, go to people that are medically trained that know stuff. I work in the medical field, so I'm not the person that's going to believe you. My mother was a nurse, doctors in my family too, so in my ancestry, I should say. But I mean, what is it we can do to, feel a little more secure when we shift and everything? Excuse me. Excuse me. Anyway. Well, there's a certain amount of homeopathic stuff that is pretty good. I use when I have an achy thing or a bruise, I use this gel that helps with pain. And it's partially homeopathic and partially herbal. Herbal is, I go herbal more than homeopathic, to tell you the truth. But the placebo effect, if you believe something's going to help you, it, very likely will. Because I think we have a lot of mental power over our health, to say the least. But right now, we have this Mandela effect thing going on. And I've noticed that the more we believe something, the more it seems to appear in our reality. We have all these white things, a white dolphin named Casper, pure white. White is a piece of paper. And albinism seems to be a big thing here, as well as the dark version where they are all black. So, it makes you wonder, well, what is it we are doing? Are we creating this kind of, are we making these things manifest as we shift because of our belief system, because of our belief, our intellectual energy and belief and faith we're putting into it? I had my booster and my flu shot. Did not get sick. All my kids have had theirs. Yeah, the power of the mind. Power of the mind. There's been lots and lots written on it. But I'm thinking, all the cryptids. Remember the cryptids were just like a ha-ha thing? Now it's like, oh my gosh, people are seeing them everywhere. Credible people are seeing them. Multiple people are seeing them. They're having interactions with these cryptids of all kinds all over the world. It's like you're going, it used to be something you read in Fate magazine. Now it's like every newspaper will have reports of people seeing stuff. I'm not sure why nobody can get a decent picture. But then if you think about, well, maybe they're not in completely phased in our reality. Maybe they're in some kind of middle energy. I had my 2 and then my booster. Anyway, so I mean, how much are we creating? It's like the coal experiment. Remember that one I talked about before? About those people in England kept getting together, the psychical people, to manifest them, and they kept meditating and meeting every a certain time every day for so long, and pretty soon things started to manifest. Weird stuff, things that they could photograph, things they could record, so-called messages from the other side. And I'm thinking, well, you heard about that ghost that was created through belief, where the psychic picked up all the information about the ghost. That was totally made up in some university. They just made it up as an experiment. So, what on earth um, does that mean? Does that mean that nothing here is real, that everything's a construct of our belief? That nothing here is real, only our faith that it's real? Our basically, it's like when you have a computer and you have another computer and you want them to talk to each other and you can't get them to shake hands, so to speak, until you do certain things, and then all of a sudden they can communicate with you, with each other, I guess. Um, so it's like, how much of all this are we shifting more and more because we believe we will shift more and more? I mean, the power of the mind is so great; it makes me concerned. I'd like to shift less often. Thanks. Just saying. And God is not a man, by the way, not a woman either. I think that God energy is everywhere and in us and around us, and that there's an intelligence, I guess. But that's my belief. We don't know. Nobody knows for sure until we die. And even then, I'm not sure we figure that out. But it's so how much of what we believe becomes manifest when we shift? If you believe life's going to get worse each time you shift, I'm sure the universe will comply. I think it's really important to think positive as much as you can. I mean, it's not easy. Not easy to be positive. I know that. But it's in your best interest to do so. I keep getting this card. Soften your sharp edges from um, my Tao affirmation deck. And soften your sharp edges. Well, it doesn't really matter whether it's flat earth or not, does it? We're here. We got to navigate it. We got to find our happiness. We have to find peace with what our lives are all about, regardless of whether this construct we're living in is oh my God, it's the man. The man is here. Oh, were talking, about the little man purses. Did you bring yours, MA? Did you bring your little man purse? And I mean, I know that when you've been wandering around the UK, how much stuff you found that's not real. It's fake stuff. And it's like, I blame you on that, MA. I think you've created that with your mind. You expect to find fake stuff, so the universe said, okay, we better give MA some fake stuff to look at. And I know that museums have a lot of fake stuff in them too, facsimiles and whatnot, which was really frustrating to find out that a lot of stuff in museums isn't real or they're copies. It's like, nothing surprising. Yeah, I don't really care if the Earth is flat or not. I don't get to travel much anyway. Play is Swift and she's fully insured. Yeah, and Peter wanted to talk about I all the foil's made of aluminum now. And I don't have any tin foil. It's no wonder we can't keep the aliens out if we don't have actual tin foil. I mean, what good is aluminum, or however you say it? Well, I believe that we are creators as well. That we are, because the God power is within us. That we create as well. I remember. I swear I remember ads in magazines and stuff about tinfoil. But when I was, when I moved to the big city from the country when I was a little girl, I was 8. And, I could, my mother would buy foil. It was always aluminum foil. I don't know where the tin foil came from unless it actually existed. It must have existed at some time. But simply tin is less abundant. Uh, tin is, stannous fluoride is a tin derivative with fluoride attached to it. Stannous is tin, I do believe. Like I said, I've never seen tin foil. It's always been aluminum. But I'm just wondering where the expression came from. It must have existed at some time. But tin, aluminum is bad to have in your body, and tin as well. I'm very old. You should be so lucky to live as long as I do, MA. May you be blessed. Well, tin foil in the 40s, is that when it was? I mean, I don't even know when tin foil was a thing. Or if it says it never existed, and it's like tin foil. You can buy it. You can buy tin foil. It was superseded after World War II by cheaper, more durable aluminum foil. Okay, so it was in the 40s. Well, apparently, according to Etsy, you can buy it. It's not cheap, though. Yeah, for $29.95 you can buy a sheet of tin foil. Tin foil still made. Reynolds wrap foil has been made of aluminum since 1926. You can leave a bitter taste in your food. Oh, lovely. Yeah, they don't, it's not available for. Huh, interesting. Okay. Keep reading there because Everett changed from tin foil to aluminum foil. Yeah. Well, I happen to believe that fluoride is bad for you, generally speaking, unless it's naturally occurring. Remember, they used to put stannous fluoride in toothpaste, which is I do believe that's a tin derivative. Oh, they call it an antimicrobial ingredient that helps inhibit plaque bacteria buildup in the mouth. Now, that's not what I was told fluoride was for. Well, sodium fluoride is what they use now. But it stains your teeth to use the stannous fluoride. Yeah, I haven't used anything with the fluoride in it for a lot of years. Well, I'm thinking, yeah, because tin foil is definitely endured. And where did the tin foil hat thing come from? Is that from? That doesn't make any sense if it's 1926 that they stopped making it. Because we didn't have the UFO thing happen until the 40s. You take care of me. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Good to see you. He's going to go see Baldy. Yeah, tinfoil. Tinfoil hat. Maybe if I can find out what the origin of that. Tinfoil hat. Where did it come from? Oh. Oh. Where did the phrase tinfoil hat come from? According to Vice, the origin of tinfoil hat came from a short story called, quote, The Tissue Culture King, unquote, by Julian Huxley, a eugenicist and brother of a Brave New World author Aldous Huxley. In the story, the protagonist resists mind control by wearing a hat made of metal foil. It must be true, right? I know we talked about the spaceship Buddhas, and remember when things were made out of copper a lot. The use of copper. Now, before we went into the Iron Age, copper was used for tool making instead. Now, copper has natural antibacterial properties. A lot of the doorknobs in my house are antimicrobial because they have a coating of brass, which has copper in it, and which naturally inhibits the growth of bacteria. And I've always wondered how on earth does a metal inhibit, something like that. Well, let's see, Mark. Space doesn't even have air in it. Even on Earth, when the sun shines, we see it, how it reflects off things. It doesn't make the air shine. Unless there's particulates, in the air. So that must have been when the tissue culture king. When was that written? Come on, give me a year, people. 1926. Well, that was the year they stopped using tin foil. Do you think that maybe the government decided they didn't want people to wear actual tinfoil hats, and so they outlawed tinfoil? That's going a little out there. I don't know. I just know that, whatever's going on here on the planet, I have no control over what the sun does, or the moon, or the universe, in that sense. Yeah, copper socks, copper, bands, copper, bracelets. Um, the energy in metals and stones. I have this little piece of celestial crystal. They call it like Atlantic crystal because it's formed under the ocean and compressed. It's like smoky quartz, and it has a lot of energy to it. Okay, there's a lot of energy in it, and we know that that crystals are used in science as energy sources and whatnot. We know this, and lasers and this sort of thing. And I did tell you about that time I was. I'm going to close up in a few minutes here. That I was at this rock shop that's on the way to Fairfield in Sacramento Valley here, on the way to Bay Area. And he has all these rocks. And he had one of these. I didn't know what it was. This was several years ago. But it was like, same thing, but like this big. And and it lets you touch things, I'm a very touchy-feely kind of person. I put both my hands on it. I did not expect to be shifted out of my body. I was non-local. My body was here. My awareness was shifted out slightly. Yeah, Mona Lisa, she was famous for her winsome look on her face, that she didn't have much in the sense of expression. That it was so slight that you couldn't call it a smirk or a smile at all. But I mean, the power of crystals. I think there's a lot of stuff that we're not, that's studied militarily and whatnot, and they don't tell us the information they're getting. Oh, I have to show you this. I have this. I found this when I was a little girl, and doesn't it look like a carving of like a four-legged animal of some kind? I need to take it to somebody who's an expert to tell me whether that's a carving or naturally occurring, because I found it's an agate. I found it in the sort of the Badlands of Washington State. There's a lot of high desert, rocky high desert where nobody lives, and we were rock hounding, and I found that like when I was 5. Hi, Hobbs. Good to see you. Yeah, and it's like being shifted out of my body's happened twice. One was touching that huge crystal in that rock shop, and one was at the Mary Cassatt exhibit in Washington, D.C., in the Smithsonian. She was a famous female artist, impressionist. And I went into this little room that it was quite a few people in there, but had a bunch of her paintings, which are just stunning. She's beautiful, beautiful paintings. And I'm in there, I physically get shifted out of my body. I feel like I'm not walking on the ground. And so I was very compelled to study about her life. And remember the World's Fair in Chicago? Um, and it was supposedly in 1893. And to me, it happened. It was later than that. It was 1905 or something like that when the World's Fair was in Chicago. And she had this huge, huge mural that Mary Cassatt painted, and along with some other artists, about women's rights, suffragettes, the women's rights movement of being able to vote and things like that. Very cutting edge on that, and she worked also with Jane Addams, who was not only a suffragette, but also worked for the rights of children and, working conditions to have children not have to work, and immigrants' rights and things like this. She was very, very, very important there. And I had another weird experience at Smithsonian. I was walking. This is why this all ties together for me. I'm walking in the American History Museum in the Smithsonian, and I'm turning a corner, and they have kind of dark, and they have displays lit up with dioramas with mannequins and stuff. And I'm turning a corner, and I feel the tingling going up my back just before I even approach it. I don't even know what I'm looking at. And I go up to it, and it's a display of Jane Addams and her cohorts working on children's work rights, immigrant rights, basically the rights of the worker. She's responsible for parks. A lot of the initial city parks were her group's ideas. She took in immigrants when they first got here, mostly Irish, and helped them to have a place to live so they wouldn't be in abject poverty, made sure they had food. And somehow I have a connection to these women and to Mary Cassatt, who were in Chicago during that World's Fair, applying their message of hope for equality of all people and fairness in the workplace and things like this. So, I almost forgot about that, and I think that, when we're trying to look at what our we mustn't forget that with all this Mandela effect stuff that we have some kind of a path that we should follow, in our lives, some kind of focus, some kind of direction that helps us grow and helps other people in the world, I guess. Anyway, 1999, Smithsonian Institute. That's what it was. It's always been Smithsonian Institute for me. I know it changed the institution, didn't it? I also had a giant Native American spirit guide follow me everywhere when I was there, too. I hiked all around D.C., which is a dangerous place, with a backpack all by myself. And the weirdest thing is that no matter where I went, I was alone. Nobody anywhere. It was like I had this bubble, the cone of silence around me or something. It was weird. And he was like a 7-foot tall Native man. I would say Algonquin of some kind. It was a spirit protector that was with me everywhere I went. And it was like I had to get used to something following me. I knew that it was protective, It was weird. It was weird. I mean, I would be surprised you didn't believe me. So, I mean, you don't have to. I also had a very weird experience went to see the little presentation in the Ford Theater where Abraham Lincoln was shot. And it's way smaller than you think it is. And, I was having trouble walking a little bit with my hip, but it was, I had rested. But unfortunately, when you rest after hiking a lot, sometimes your hip, your joints will sort of stiffen up. And we were all going to go up the stairs to look at the box, the balcony box where he was shot. Look at the door because they kept some things the same. And I'm thinking, it's very narrow. I mean, these women wear crinoline skirts. I'm just trying to figure out I don't think a woman would have been able to go up these stairs with those huge skirts. They must have had a different way to go up to the box, maybe another entrance, which I think there probably was. But I mean, those big hoop skirts, I mean, I don't know how they managed it. But anyway, going up, and I'm thinking, well, how am I going to get up these stairs? I want to go up there. I'm like it's going to be slow go. I'm going to have to go up very slowly. And they're very narrow, very steep stairs. And I have people in front of me, people behind me, not touching me, but, they're there. And I start going up and I'm worried about going up these stairs. And all of a sudden, I'm weightless. And I swear I'm being lifted up those stairs. So always nice to have a big guy at your back to help you up the stairs, right? That was so bizarre. And there was nothing really creepy about the box itself. I didn't get to go in it, though. What was creepy was the Lincoln exhibits in the basement, which had the coat he was wearing when he was shot. It has the gun and the bullet. I mean, it's got all kinds of the artifacts and I think they're the real thing. And that energy, and they have like a zillion busts of Lincoln down there. I mean, they have like 20 plus busts that have been made of Lincoln. Sculptures. I mean, the energy down there was just creepy. I mean, basements aren't my favorite thing on a good day, but it was just creepy stuff. Really creepy stuff. Really creepy. And then we went to where he passed. They took him to across the street to this beautiful little home that had this beautiful garden. And I never felt like Lincoln was spiritually bound to that area. I mean, he's supposedly haunts the White House, which makes sense because he loved, that's where he worked and he loved it, and has emotional ties. So he didn't have any emotional ties to where he died. But I mean, that was just, the energy that I felt there was just sadness because, it's residual, people mourning his loss. Um, it was a very sad day for the country that happened. And there's all the debate as to what happened to uh, people involved in the plot to kill him, because that changes. Whether they died here, whether they're dead at all, whether they were cornered here or cornered there, that keeps changing. Yeah, weird stuff. Anyway, I will talk to you again next week. Hopefully my life will be a little calmer. I've had lots of things I've had to go and have tests done, so I didn't have time to do my research like I'd like. And that doesn't mean you get off the hook either. You bring something to the table once in a while too. I'm just a talking head after all. Anyway, it was lovely to see you and talk to you next week. And keep thinking those good thoughts. I'm still looking for lizards, by the way.